Hello and a very happy new year to you all. This is an information video for parents and students of Lytchett Minster School. I am recording this Monday 4th of January at 11 o'clock, just in case anything changes in the next 24 hours. Just like to go through two areas really. One is the staggered start and the other is the mass testing program which we have been asked to introduce. We'll start with the staggered start. From tomorrow, Tuesday the 5th of January, we welcome in the children of critical workers and vulnerable children. The anticipation is that you have already booked in your place. We can't have students, I'm afraid, just turning up on the door tomorrow. We are running with a skeleton staff and we simply can't cope with more than that we have booked in. We have 81 students booked in so far. Those students are required to come in normal school uniform, and they will go to the main reception to sign in and then wait outside until the bell goes, and then they'll go to their allocated areas. For Year 7 students, you go to the Portland block, and we have computer rooms 5 and 10 for you. If you're in Year 8, please go to room 70, that's in the Galt area. If you're in Year 9, please go to the Lulworth block, room 115. If you are in Year 10 or 11, please go to the computer room in the library. The students will be doing the same work as those students who are working remotely from home. We are running a normal school day, so it'll be 8:45 to 3:25 with the normal breaks. We are providing some food at lunch, so please bring your ID cards. Please wear your masks, of course, throughout. If you are a Key Stage 5 BTEC student with exams coming up, I can confirm that those exams are taking place, and your teachers have very kindly agreed to run some revision sessions, and they will have emailed you separately about those. So for those BTEC students, we will be offering testing for you when you come in for those revision sessions. The rest of you, pretty much all of you then, will be doing remote learning, certainly for this week and probably till the 18th of January. And you're going to find your work on Teams. If you have any problem at all logging on to Teams, then as always, just contact the IT support and I'm sure they'll sort you out. We have to be sensible about remote learning. 5 hours of sitting in front of a computer is really not that healthy, is it? So you've got to find some balance. We want you to do as much as you can, but you will need to take breaks throughout the day, and staff have been asked to bear in mind the fact that it's a little bit tough doing so much remote learning. They'll be setting about 40 minutes of work per lesson, following the normal school timetable. So we'd encourage you to keep to that as much as possible, but it may be that you want to go for a walk at some point during the day, have a bit of a break, watch a bit of telly perhaps for an hour or so. The key word is balance. You need balance, you need routine, and you do, folks, need to be self-disciplined. This is particularly for the students. Self-discipline and that independent learning, if you can really crack that over the next few weeks, that will really prepare you well for your future studies. So, remote learning for all students. There will be some live lessons for Year 11 and 13, but your teachers will tell you about that when that is going to happen. Good news for those of you who receive free school meals. Vouchers will continue for the next 2 weeks. Those will be sent home to you. From Monday the 11th of January, we welcome Year 11 and 13 back for normal face-to-face lessons. Reminder that the full school uniform should be worn. Critical worker children will still continue to come in. Monday the 18th of January, we are hoping that all of you will come back, but we await further announcements from the Secretary of State for Education. Must remind you that you only send your child into school if the child does not have any COVID symptoms. If you do have COVID symptoms, you must stay at home, please. So, moving on to mass testing program. This is all about keeping the school community as safe as possible, and frankly we do welcome it. It is important to recognise that 1 in 3 people who have COVID have no symptoms. They are asymptomatic. So the point of these lateral flow tests that we're being asked to introduce is that it will detect people who do have the COVID virus, although they are showing no symptoms. So apart from that benefit of identifying the asymptomatic super spreaders, if you wish, it also means that we can eliminate the need for students to self-isolate for 10 days if they have been in close contact with someone who has tested positive. This has been a real frustration, particularly for students who've got exams coming up, that they have to self-isolate for 10 days because they happen to have stood near someone who then tested positive. Because we've now got these lateral flow tests, this will enable us to test those individual students every day for 7 consecutive days as an alternative to sending them home for 10 days. So I think that's a really good thing. I have to make it clear that the tests are voluntary, and we will need written parental permission for the students to have the tests. Now, although it is voluntary, I would urge you to agree to have your child tested for this. Why would you not do it? Why would you not do it? Think of the benefits for the whole school community. Think of altruism, that need to do something to support other people. We will feel much more secure if we know that everyone in the school has been tested. The tests are not painful, there are no jabs, and the key point, I think, for everyone to recognise is that they are self-administered. So there will be no one poking swabs up your nose or down the back of your throat. Students will do this themselves, and they will be supervised. The team that will be doing the supervision are being trained today. They are following the government training scheme, and by the end of today they will be fully trained, and they will make sure that the tests are done correctly, but all testing is self-administered. We plan to test the whole school. We will start this week with the students, the children of critical workers who are coming in, and the BTEC students who are coming in. We'll start testing the 11s and 13s next week. I've had a few questions from parents about how long it would take. Our anticipation is that the whole process would take a student leaving their classroom to have the test, coming back, probably no more than 15 minutes. So they'll be tested in groups, in tutor groups, and once they've been tested, they will go straight back to lessons. The results will come back in half an hour. Obviously, if a student does test positive, they'll be collected from their lesson, and we will have to ask you to come and pick them up. They'll need to go home, and they will have a regular PCR test, just to make sure that the initial test was correct. If the PCR test comes back as negative, the student will be allowed to return to school. If the PCR test comes back as positive, then 10 days isolation will result. I hope that's reasonably clear. A number of you have asked some excellent questions, and I'm going to try and answer some of those now. So one of the questions was, how does the testing process work? So the students will leave their classroom, they'll be taken in tutor groups, they'll line up outside the sports hall. It's a one-way system. You go in, you're given the swab, you put the swab at the back of your throat and at the back of your nose, supervised by a trained member of staff, not a teacher, it is a member of support staff, and then they will head off and go straight back to their lessons. We'll get the results back within 30 minutes. We will only let you know if it's a positive test. Our child I'm just going to read some questions out here. Our child takes the school bus. If someone tests positive that has been on that particular bus, will all of the students on the bus be isolated or asked to take a test every day for the next 7 days? Okay, so the rule still applies regarding close contacts. We will look at who has been within 2 meters of that positive case. So if you're sat at the front of a bus We will look at the people who have sat within 2 meters, and those students will have 7 consecutive days of testing. If they refuse to have the testing, then of course they have to self-isolate for 10 days. The rest of the bus will carry on as normal. Here's another question. Is the plan to test every child or just some from each bubble? And how frequently will the tests be carried out? Okay, so the plan is that we will test every child. Year 11 and 13, in their first week, we hope to test them twice within sort of 3 days of each other. And then when the other students come back, we'll start with year 12. They will be tested, and then year 10, then year 9, then year 8, and year 7. This will take a couple of days, and we only anticipate testing those students once. Obviously, we have the facility to test other students every day for 7 days if they have been in close contact with someone who has tested positive. Here's a question. If my child doesn't want it done, does that mean he has to self-isolate for 10 days? As I said, it is a voluntary test. We really will encourage you to have this test done, but if you choose not to, then we will not be forcing you to do so. What we will be doing this week, particularly with the children of critical workers, is if a child doesn't have the test for whatever reason, they and everyone in that class will be expected to wear a mask for the entire day. That's for all 5 hours of the day, just to give that extra protection. We're going to review that at the end of this week. If we feel it's working, then we might roll that out across the whole school. If my child has the first one and then refuses the next one, does that mean he can't be in school till he has had a negative test? As I said, it is a voluntary thing. We won't be sending any child home who refuses to have the test. This is an interesting question. My child has had a test before, and because of his gag reflex, he couldn't do the swab down his throat. At the test site, they said he was fine to do it up both nostrils. This isn't a very pleasant conversation, is it, between you and me? But I've got a lot of sympathy for this one, because when I go to the dentist, I have this sort of gag reflex as well. So I'm delighted that the advice that we've been given is that if a student really, really struggles putting it down the back of the swab down the back of the throat, they can indeed put it up both nostrils. That will count, apparently. So I'm pleased about that, because I'm going to give it a try, obviously, but I'm pleased to know that there is that option if it doesn't quite work out. Okay, well, I hope that has been reasonably useful for you. Remember that the mass testing is just an additional measure. All the measures that we've put in place up to now, they will carry on. So the mask wearing, the social distancing, the ventilation in classrooms, which I know is not very popular, but we are advised is very important. And of course the hand washing, all those things will continue, but we're talking about marginal gains. So if this helps a little bit, we really would like to grasp it, because the safety of the school community, staff and students, is our absolute priority. And we just want to get all students back into school safely, because we know that remote learning is a poor substitute for face-to-face teaching. We're going to do our best to make it as interesting as possible, but we know that students belong in school. So you can help us by signing that consent form, and we can get all our students tested. I hope this is going to be a great 2021, a great year. There are lots of reasons to be optimistic with the vaccines coming on stream, and we're going to look after your child. So thank you very much for listening, and Happy New Year to you all.